Does your business have a backbone? Now, I've asked many people to try and imagine themselves without one. Just take a moment and try and think about it without that golden bone that runs through your body. What would you be like? Are you able to sit up? Are you able to stand? What are you really able to do? Now, as you can possibly imagine, there's very limited things that you can actually do without a backbone. So, how come your business might not have a backbone? How are you going to withstand the challenges that come and arise as a result of you embarking on an entrepreneurship journey? This morning, I hope by the end of my conversation with you, you and I will start developing our business backbone. Gary Vaynerchuk, a well-known Belarusian American entrepreneur who started in his family business, humbly so, in the wine farms, shares with us that a company culture is the backbone of any successful organization. Company culture. Let's take away company. Culture is the successful backbone of any organization. Now, do we know if your business has that culture, that backbone that gets it to withstand any challenge that it might come through with? I suddenly learned this at the beginning of my time as an entrepreneur. I was also around about the teenage days, and then I felt like I think I've got everything under control. I was excited to start my very first business, and I'm sure with my friends. One thing that was really outstanding about this was I had a great idea with a great plan. And I thought this was it. This was my ticket to stardom. I saw myself driving my favorite AMG car, and I saw myself living in a mansion that you would want to visit me one day. I was ready to make waves. I was ready to show these old gray-haired men and women that, hey, there's a young gentleman here who's ready to take over anything and everything and make sure that my voice had a meta or had a strong effect on the economy. And there I was starting it off. And that's exactly how it ended. Now, I don't know if you are like me and you want to know why then was it important? What went wrong? Now, it was easy for me to assume that maybe, just maybe, something was wrong with the planning until I got to be amongst a group of people who I called mentors. Now, I don't know about you, but one thing that I've heard time and time again is that entrepreneurship is a lonely sport. It shouldn't be for as long as you are in a community. And so I immediately went out to find out, why do we need this backbone? Why does your business need this backbone? And guess what? Through research and learning, again, I learned that because culture eats strategy for breakfast. Remember earlier we shared that our business backbone is the culture. And then another American author, Peter Drucker, shares with us that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Now, what does that mean, and what did it mean to me at that point in time? It didn't matter how many P's of proper planning, promoting peak performance I had on my plan. It didn't matter how big or how thick or how solid my plan was. Just like for some of us, it didn't matter how well planned 2020 was for us last year. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. What that means, the procrastination that we had as we started our business trumped everything to do with the planning that I had set aside. What culture are you breeding amongst business partners? What culture is embedded in your organization as an entrepreneur, as a business person, in your community? My mother always loves to remind me that charity begins at home. What culture have you developed within you to be able to do this? If your business is going to withstand any challenges, whether economic, political, or societal, what culture will keep you standing? What culture do you have that remains you as the backbone? So today, I'm hoping that as we think about this conversation, you will also be able to identify what do you really need for you to develop a business backbone. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that I got into a group of people who helped me identify the need for a backbone. And there are two main things that they brought to me that were key: leadership skills and communication skills. Show by a sign or a signal or a message in the chat box if you remember sometime around about 2018 in a city called Cape Town, where they were experiencing a drought of water. Just either by a reaction or a chat on the chat box, do you remember that point in time, that period in time, when Cape Town, around about 2018, when they were experiencing a drought of water? It was fascinating for me, a first time experiencing this. And the reason for those that have not been to Cape Town before is it was fascinating because Cape Town is a city covered in two oceans. Now, how odd is it that a city covered in two oceans was experiencing a drought of water? Similarly, through my research, I discovered that our continent, our country, our communities are experiencing a somewhat similar drought. A drought of leadership in entrepreneurship. Just like Cape Town, it was not because there was no water that they're experiencing a drought. I mean, they've got two oceans, but the right quality of water the Cape Townians needed to survive was scarce. It was limited. Similarly, in our continent, in our community, in our country, it is not because we do not have people to take up leadership roles, but the right quality of leaders and entrepreneurs we need to thrive and survive are limited and scarce. And so I set myself on a path to develop these two key skills: leadership and communication. I found a place called Toastmasters. Toastmasters privileged me with a platform to develop and learn those skills. What I thought I knew, they reminded me that there is more to learn. And guess what? As I learned, I also taught others. Now with you, as you get into your business environment, the leadership aspect is about you developing foresight. In many of our literature, we call that the vision. I was challenged to have a foresight of what it is that I needed to have at the end of the day. What picture can you paint of what your business success will look like? What describes a successful entrepreneur? Your ability to have a clear foresight of your business success is a key component behind you developing your leadership skills. And so I challenge you out of this conversation to try and picture what your business success will look like. What does the vision look like? What is the business foresight like? The second skill I was hit hard by was problem solving. Now, I was one of those people who always have something to complain about. Lack of funds, lack of time, lack of support, lack of resources. The list is endless. When I went to entrepreneurship, I recognized that I transitioned from being the complainant to being the problem solver. Entrepreneurs, our responsibility, our duty is not to highlight the problems in our society, in our townships. Our responsibility is to solve the problems that others are bringing up. And for you, the question is, what problem are you solving? If we're going to be building better businesses, so surely there must be some problem that you're solving. And there, when you recognize that you are right in that process of solving problems, the third pillar was service. It's no longer about you. It's about the customer. It's about solving the problem for someone else. And when you're solving a problem for someone else, you let go of who you conceive or perceive yourself to be and start thinking about how you can make the situation better for someone else. Leadership is about these three components and more. But precisely, if you're going to thrive in business, remember to have the foresight that we will see what it is like, because you're not living in isolation. You've got to lead other people. For you to influence us towards your goal, we need to see what the picture is, what the goal is. And through that, don't expect it to be a smooth riding road. Rather, expect to be solving problems, step in, way out. And most importantly, as you solve problems, remember it's not about you. There was also the communication side that I also discovered was a key component behind my development. And there I learned the element of clarity. Now, how well do you know your service or product? Do you know the impact it had? Now, when I started that business, I was so excited because I thought I had it figured out until someone asked you, so what can this service of yours do for me? How is it going to change my life? And obviously, I was dumbfounded because I wasn't prepared. All I knew it was a good product, but good was not good enough. I was challenged to develop confidence and assertiveness about the value of the product. You know those times when they invite you to do a certain task or to provide a product and they're negotiating you down? As an entrepreneur, do you have confidence in the value of your product? Or are you consistently being doubtful about the impact and value it can bring? There are times when I had to learn that my product, my value, my service offering was worth what I put to the table. And instead of shying away just because I'm afraid I want to get that invoice paid off or I want to get that invoice accepted, I learned to be assertive enough to convince and persuade my client to see the value of my product. Sales. And the third, and most importantly, to keep the clients engaged. The interpersonal skills for us to be able to network and build relationships. Because as we all know, humans are gregarious, which means we affect one another. And so if we're ever going to thrive in business, if we're ever going to go far in building better businesses, we need to build that interpersonal relationship that is going to help you and I become better business partners or associates in the future. Now, where do I bring this to? Where do you go from here? You've recognized that perhaps you might not have the backbone that every business needs to have. It's Toastmasters. Toastmasters was that platform for me that provided an affordable place where I learned time management skills and the ability to communicate with my clients whenever I was unable to meet a deadline. But throughout my development in the organization, I realized I needed to know how well to plan leadership. I was also able to learn how to work with other people, delegate recognizing that I don't have all the strengths. Do you feel that sometimes you're a jack of all trades and a master of none? A fellow speaker always challenges us that when they call out your name, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is that your service offering? Think about it. Have you ever considered becoming an industry expert in what you provide and not trying to be a jack of all trades for the sake of a signed check? Sometimes we come back to a place where we then identify that these skills may not be innate in us, but they can be developed. And the best place that I know for sure you can develop these skills is Toastmasters. There is a Toastmasters club near you where you can develop the leadership skills and the communication skills so that by the time you thrive in entrepreneurship, one thing is certain: your company culture is strong enough to be the backbone of your successful organization, as we learned from Gary. And remembering that you can plan all you want, but if the culture is not strong enough, you and I are going to be in trouble. If you remember in 2018, Cape Town was experiencing a drought of water. Not because they didn't have the water, but the right quality of water the Cape Townians needed was scarce. Fellow entrepreneur, currently our continent, our country, our communities are experiencing a drought of leadership and entrepreneurship, which are the backbone of our economy and our societies. Not because we don't have the right people, but you need to develop the right skills, the backbone to keep you going. I hope you will find a Toastmasters club or a platform that will help you develop that backbone. Over to you, Mr. MC.